Awesome readers! Today we're going to be reading Veterans, Heroes in Our Neighborhood by Valerie Funstein. Today we learned about our heroes, a really special kind, the ones who serve America and leave their homes behind. We read about the veterans who give all they can give to keep our country safe and free so we can love and live. Our teacher asked us each to name a veteran we knew. She said, "Now you may be surprised. It won't be hard to do." So after school, I asked my dad. He had amazing news. These heroes live right in our town. So many. Who can choose? There are family, neighbors, friends who never boast or brag. We all should be reminded of their love for home and flag. The man in town who cuts our hair is known as Frank the Barber, but not too many know he was a sailor at Pearl Harbor. The butcher at the grocery store who cuts the meat for stew was once a paratrooper. Wow! Matt served in World War II. And Walter is a Navy man who came to fix our heat. He once fixed boilers on the ships that sailed with the U.S. fleet. Our neighbor Jacqueline is a nurse who wears a uniform. She cared for wounded soldiers when she served in Desert Storm. Ernie is a firefighter. We knew that he was brave. And yet we never knew about the Air Force time he gave. And Edna, our librarian, had a son named John. He died while training for Iraq. Now she's a Gold Star mom. Our mailman is a volunteer who trains each year to serve. When duty calls, Bob goes abroad. He's in the Army Reserve. And Manny is a proud Marine who did a corporal's part. He was wounded overseas and wears a Purple Heart. We celebrate our Veterans Day the 11th of November. We show our patriotic pride and promise to remember. Our heroes' headstones wear the flag from coast to coast in May. It's how we honor those we've lost and mark Memorial Day. We painted posters of our heroes and marched in a parade to thank these men and women for their sacrifices made. But we don't need a calendar to celebrate the brave. We pledge allegiance to the flag and let those colors wave. It doesn't matter where they served, what service branch or rank. What matters is remembering them and offering our thanks. The end. Thank you so much for reading with me.
The honoree of this week's Veterans Salute can be seen all over town at every Veterans Memorial, Remembrance, or ceremony. Jason Lamb introduces us to Herb Duncan.
Herb Duncan served in the Navy from 1958 until 1962. But really, his service to our country and our veterans has never ended. From recording their stories on video to volunteering for the Kansas Honor Flight program, Duncan has made it his mission to honor Kansas veterans. Herb Duncan was destined to serve in the Navy.
Because my family's military and they're all Navy. My dad was on the USS Missouri battleship. He was there at the signing of the surrender.
He enlisted and completed basic training in San Diego.
They literally break you down to the bare nuts and bolts of life. And then they build you up. They train you, and that training will stay with you. I still have it.
After training stops in Texas, Oklahoma, and Whiting Field, Florida, where the Wichita East grad worked on airplanes and played on Pensacola Beach.
All these girls with those bikinis, and I fell in love 15 times before I could sneeze.
Duncan was ordered to Naval Air Station QB Point in the Philippines, where he spent the next 2.5 years.
And we landed there, and that's where I got my glimpse of what it must have been like back in World War II, how they liberated the Philippines, one island at a time.
The new batch of Americans immediately learned they weren't in a tropical paradise.
Everything over there was decayed. They had little bitty snakes about that long, they call them the bamboo snake. And it goes from that long to 18 feet of snakes. And the monkeys, you can walk down the jungle trail, had one of our guys started throwing rocks at these monkeys. You know what? The monkeys started throwing rocks back at us.
Duncan spent most of his time at a fuel refilling station.
See, we were a support unit to the Vietnam effort.
He remembers one Saturday night in '61 when the sirens went off.
Over the loudspeaker systems, all hands report to your duty stations. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. And I saw landing lights coming in. And they would get closer and closer, and one would land, and they would taxi down to the end, come around to the high-speed fuel. We'd fuel them up, and they would get full of fuel. They would taxi out. One would take off, and one would land. One would take off, and one. We did that for 3 straight days. That's when Vietnam was just starting in.
Duncan was never in combat, but when he lays awake at night, he has flashbacks of a near miss on QB Point. He was driving a truck loaded with 5,000 pounds of aviation fuel when the brakes failed. He narrowly avoided an aircraft carrier and rows of armed fighter jets before coming to a stop. He still struggles with PTSD, and he has terrible headaches from being exposed to that aviation fuel.
Our veterans deserve especially our combat veterans, needs so much respect, it's just unreal. They paid the price. They're still paying the price. You just can't see it. It's in their mind.
This is why Duncan works tirelessly to honor Kansas veterans.
When I saw my cousin's name on the Vietnam Wall, and when I came back, I developed a saying, and it's true. If you're remembered, you'll never be forgotten.
Duncan was instrumental in getting the Kansas Honor Flight program off the ground with his volunteering and fundraising efforts here in Sedgwick County. Over 3,700 Kansas veterans have flown to Washington, D.C. at no cost to visit their monuments over the last 11 years. Here for you, Jason Lamb, KSN News 3.
On behalf of Devon James Injury Lawyers, we're honored to recognize this week's veteran, Herb Duncan. Mr. Duncan served our country in the United States Navy and continues to be very active with the Kansas Honor Flight.
Thank you very much for honoring the veterans of Kansas, and these funds will be going towards the support of Kansas Honor Flight and honoring our men and women veterans.
Veteran Salute is sponsored by the Devon James Injury Lawyers.